So first, I want to say thank you to Skylar for moderating, and everybody should subscribe to Skylar. And also thanks to Ross for having the debate, for wanting the debate. So thank you, Ross. First up, what I want to do is kind of lay out my points as to why Christians should definitely be banned from evangelizing to indigenous people. First, in this particular context, Christians are not concerned with the actual well-being of a group of people. They are only concerned with adding another soul to their list of saved people. And in this invasion of another culture and subsequent disruption of their society, it has real world like negative effects associated with them, including the devastation of entire tribes and severe culture shock. Philosophically, the goal of a missionary is not to help the indigenous people. They use certain actions to gain the trust of the indigenous people so that they can use that trust to convert them to Christianity. It's a subversive way of colonizing the minds of people that shouldn't be colonized. Caitlin Lowry used to be a missionary, and after the John Allen Chow was killed while trying to evangelize to the Sentinelese people, she reflected on her time as a missionary. She said, quote, "I used to be a missionary. I would go on short-term mission trips to Eastern Europe or Africa for the sole purpose of earning souls for Christ. We kept count of the number of people we saved. We put on a play or volunteered for a little while to show our love for Jesus. Then after praying with them and adding their soul to the tally marks, we would never see them again. Ask me what their names were. I must have worked with and met hundreds of people. I do remember, do I remember who they were? Did I even attempt to keep in contact with them or show them that I still care after they'd been added to the notches on my cross? No, not even once." End quote. The ultimate goal of most evangelists and missionaries is to continue to add notches to their cross because they are only concerned with how they make themselves feel. We will see how this narcissistic mindset has devastating real-world effects later. Evangelists and missionaries are only focused on what happens to people after they die and not what evangelists and missionaries can actually do now to help the people they preach to. Instead of providing food and water, they provide Bibles. Instead of learning about their culture and protecting their way of life, they seek to destroy their cultural identity and replace it with Christian identity and way of life. If your goal is to actually help indigenous people, there are secular ways of doing just that. Groups like the Amazon Conservation Team work with the local governments to protect the indigenous people and provide them help that they actually need. Nobody needs their way of life disrupted or destroyed because someone considers it to be insufficient based on their subjective opinion about an afterlife. Now, the real-world effects of evangelizing to indigenous people. As I mentioned before, there are several negative real-world effects that are directly caused by evangelizing to indigenous people. As I said before, evangelists and missionaries use a shallow, surface-level attempt to help indigenous people in order to gain their trust. As an example, Wycliffe Bible translators exchange essential services like transportation, education, medical assistance around the world for an unrestricted license to evangelize their faith to tribes of indigenous people. As a result, they show very little respect to the culture and society of these tribes. This undermines the confidence of these indigenous people by destroying their beliefs and replacing them with the evangelists' beliefs. Stephanie Finns describes the effects of evangelists on the, I'm going to butcher this name, but Machihuenga people of Peru as drastically shifting their status systems, inequalities, and created a dependency on Western goods. Mark Plotkin of the Amazon Conservation Team discusses the devastating effects of missionaries on the Curacao people in Suriname from 1969 to 1971. In just 2 years, nearly 50% of the population lost their lives to upper respiratory diseases and culture shock. He claims that he can lump missionaries and evangelicals into one of two groups: those who want to prepare these tribes for the outside world, and those that want to save some souls for Jesus. Ripping someone out of their native culture, robbing them of their belief system, and effectively destroying their culture is not the best thing for Indigenous people. And if you think that they don't destroy cultures and beliefs, just take a look at what happened to Liberia. When missionaries brought Christianity to Liberia, cloaked with a helping hand, they radically changed the culture of the entire country. Soon after, there were so many churches that the native beliefs were in the minority. Christians will look at this and think about how awesome God is and how great it is to see God permeating a society. What they really should see is how a culture was fossilized by an invading Western Christian culture. Christianity became central to its positions of power, and even their government changed to become a carbon copy of the United States, complete with a Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and a Bill of Rights. Their flag is the exact same as the United States, except it's only got one star. That is colonialism. Caitlin Lowry, the ex-missionary that I quoted earlier, had this to say about her attitude towards the indigenous peoples that she ministered to. Quote, "I prayed over their houses of worship that they would repent and see that their faith was dead. Yet I never once sat down and asked to learn what they believed. Why did I assume that my faith was the right faith? Why did I assume that my presence was so precious that it would change their hearts and lives? Why did I assume that they were lost, living their beautiful, content lives right where they were? Why did I assume their lives needed changing?" End quote. Missionaries and evangelicals will do whatever it takes to spread their faith, even if it means utterly destroying an entire culture to do so. If you don't recall, the conquistadors that landed in the Americas had the same goals as the missionaries do now: to colonize the savages, to bring them to civilization. They did this because they thought their way was better than the native people, just like the missionary and evangelicals now. All they do is bring sickness and subversion and a subversive hand with which to help them. How much time do I have, Skylar? Oh, I can't. You're muted.
About 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Sorry.
Okay. So right here at the end, what I'll add is that there's also another victim in the missionary and evangelical life, and that would be the children of the evangelicals. Because what happens to them is they are sent off to boarding schools, or they're even taught within the communities that their parents are serving. But the problem is that there's even less regulation over the missionaries and evangelicals that are on these missions. They get sexually abused all the time, just as much as they do here in the States in their own churches. Abroad, they are abused by even their own parents. And like I said before, the evangelicals and missionaries abuse the trust that is given to them by the indigenous people.